Hello, my name is Joyelle Mandy, and this video is for my neurobiology class of Aspen University, discussing the case of KJ, a heroin addict. I will be exploring the implications when it comes to concerning myself of working with opioid addiction, as well as explaining those findings to future clientele, and also discussing practical advice that can be applied in these situations for other healthcare professionals, as well as the community or those looking to see how they can delve and be a part of the solution to this issue. Opioid addiction, personally, where I live, is becoming more and more widespread, especially with youth. And nationwide, it's gaining and garnering way more attention as people are realizing that is a fast spreading issue. With the case of KJ, that's no different. He himself was a 26-year-old male. The findings based off of his addiction was gathered firstly off of an autopsy of finding fresh needle marks in his arms, as well as one that was infected. Looking up his files, it was discovered that he was a struggling addict. He was not a controlled substance user, but he was indeed what some would label a complete addict or a full-blown addict. He struggled in and out of rehabilitation, dealing with heroin. He had himself checked into multiple facilities, also to assist with his wife becoming clean as well, which were multiple failed attempts. The longest span he could manage to stay sober would be a week before he relapsed. One of the saddest parts about KJ's case is that what took him out necessarily was not just the substance, but it was the fact that the substance that he injected into his system was not the usual dosage, much less not even the usual product he would use. Implications of his case study that I would share as far as dealing with those with opioid addiction is, number one, understanding the style of use that they have. If they're controlled, it's a little bit easier, if easier can be a term, applied to these situations to deal with, because they have a set pattern. And as learned in the book, thanks during this course, would be that they have set rules that they use by. So to help them assess those rules of their life and to figure out the root causes of where that comes from, it gets a little easier to counsel them concerning their use. But when it comes to people like KJ and his wife, where they are consistent users, there's a lot of neurological damage done. Their brain chemicals are also very off balance. So to have them coming in, it has to almost be an expectation of knowing the first go around, the second go around, or even the third may not be the time that they truly let go of their addiction. So that means also that's a lot of follow-ups, maybe even some runaround dealing with them, but also knowing that them seeking help shows that there is hope for them, because they are aware that they have an addiction. But it's the issue of getting them off of the opioids, especially because of substances like heroin. It blocks receptors in the brain that usually would attach themselves healthily to the transmitters and to the recepting areas. The transmitters have an issue and they're intercepted. Explaining those type of findings to a client would just have to have them understand the full process of what's happening with every use. The first time that they shoot up, that automatically alters the way that their brain and their brain chemicals use their receptors in their transmitters. So from that point onward, their body seeks and craves to outdo the first time that they use. To a user, they just know that they have a reward system of, when I use, this feels great, therefore I must replicate this feeling. But for their brain, they have now changed the way that their brain is able to transmit and to receive certain emotions, feelings, and it is now chemically dependent on a foreign substance. So that's what makes the breaking away of their addiction harder to wrestle with. And so a client has to understand coming in, and that I would have to share with them as we discuss their plan, and really what it is that helping them identify where in their life that they feel the need to be dependent upon a chemical, even if it comes down to them just genuinely using it in a passerby situation of peer pressure, a party, or things of that nature, but really coming to terms about where it comes from and the effect of that decision, not just in the moment but lifelong. Also with understanding that within those choices that they are consistently damaging their brain, and it's not just them feeling better or them feeling more heightened or more alive, but that they are seriously causing issues to their motor skills, their way of thinking, their judgment. It completely changes not just the chemicals as far as feeling, but also the ability to process, the ability to think and to consider. It impairs them on a longer scale the more addicted that they become to the opioid use in general. The practical advice that I would have to extend is, number one, if you are going to use, to have an understanding that it's not safe every time. Drug use in itself is not safe, if safe can even again be applied to these type of situations. But understanding that, just like in KJ's case, he died not just because of the use, because he already had a certain lifestyle of usage that he had on a day-to-day. However, it's because the dealer that he received from gave him a different type of heroin that actually was more muddled and chemically different than what he used before. So though he used the same amount as always, because the product was different, that's ultimately what killed him. It was foreign compared to his usual fix. And so using drugs and knowing that even for family members that might bend or be enablers, going out and finding drugs from a different dealer, buying it off the black market, those products are not always pure or true to what a family member might always use or what to an addict may always use. So every time that you buy, you could literally be setting yourself up for your last use. Therefore, it would behoove a person and it would behoove family and friends no longer to purchase. If anything should help motivate a person to be sober, is understanding that you're not just playing with your life from the opioid use itself or the drug substance abuse itself, but from not really able to trust what's being given to you. Also, as I stated before, KJ had an infection in one of the needle injection sites. There, you making sure you're sterile is not always guaranteed. If you're under the influence of a substance, your brain is missing judgment, which means you may think that your needle is clean or that someone's giving you a clean needle, but your brain patterns being altered, the way that you're thinking, your judgment being weaker, you really can't assure that either. So practical advice on that also is, do not seek needles. Do not trust those who are dealing for you or dealing to you. Those people they're there for business, and their business is making money off of addiction, which is ultimately they could care less about the life of who they're selling to, much less the product that they're giving. They don't care if it's pure and they don't care if it's clean. They care about the dollar amount and they don't care if a person passes away. I would also say to not give up the first time that you go to a program. Seek a program, as we have even in Florida, where they have re-entry. If you have a very bad history of relapse, find a place that has an understanding of that and that allows re-entry, so that you still have a familiar atmosphere of safety, a familiar place of support. Gain and garner support with those who really have the patience and understanding of your addiction, and ensuring that you yourself are educated on what your addiction is and how it truly operates, for you to really be able to make the best efforts. Those would be the most practical modes of advice, other than staying away from drugs and being free from it and seeking help. Make sure to seek help in the right arenas to ensure that you have the best chance of fighting that addiction.